We have a good one today. We have Todd Miller, real estate investor, and he is going to discuss a few topics that are close to his heart and something that he practices and believes every day. So first, we're going to talk about self-awareness. Todd Miller is going to talk about self-awareness and how he took it from, growing up as a professional into the career he's in now. And I'm going to kick it off to Todd.
Thank you, Caleb. I believe self-awareness is one of the two most important traits you can possess in any profession, in any endeavor you're trying to take on. Versatility being the other one, but we'll focus on self-awareness. When I think of self-awareness and when I think of how to be self-aware, it's not only knowing you, the person, and that is a big part of self-awareness, but it's not just about knowing like what you're good at and what you're working on and what you're bad at, what you need help with, how you're going to leverage others. But I think the critical part of self-awareness is to know how another person or another situation will perceive you and your strengths and your weaknesses. And being self-aware enough to know where you need to make tweaks in life and where you need to work on your strengths and continue to grow, I think is one of the most important things.
Sure. So with self-awareness, there's a lot of good things and bad things that can come in as you grow as a professional, right? So these are some students and interns that we have at Newman. When they look for their own self-awareness and they're looking at it as a student, before they either enter an internship or enter their career and their job, what are some things that they could do, or I guess, like maybe an audit that they can take for themselves to kind of get rolling in their self-awareness?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's a really good thing to be thinking about when you are a student and trying to figure out where you're going to take your career. I'll just share an example from me. I went to Temple University and I was a journalism major, and I selected journalism for a few reasons. But the biggest reason was I knew that learning how to read, write, and listen, interview mainly, was going to help me no matter what I did in my career. So I was self-aware enough to know that. I was not the best student. I wasn't really, I was never the smartest kid in my class. And that's okay. But knowing that about myself and knowing that about whoever you are is going to be helpful. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, I think, these students are looking to kind of find some answers, but there's not going to be like one answer that they find. It's going to be kind of an adventure, and they're going to find some discoveries along the way. Mm-hmm. So in what you do and looking at a student, self-awareness, it means a lot for your success. Where have you seen your self-awareness in, a specific situation or scenario kind of help you?
Sure. So in my current life today, I am a real estate investor, and I own a bunch of rental properties. And I've learned early on that you can't be all things to all people. You want to be the perfect landlord and you want to buy the perfect house and put the perfect finishes in there. And that's just not a reality. So knowing that about me, I've learned that I work well in this specific market with this specific type of tenant in a house that's designed a specific sort of way. But it was a long journey to get there and a long process to understand that.
Yeah, so I think you kind of hit on some strengths that, you kind of realized this is what I am and this is how I can perceive it. Let's talk about weaknesses on the other end of that. Where's something that you kind of found yourself, I'm not the best at this, but because I'm aware of how myself reacts, whether it's your mind, your body, or whatever, how do you kind of counteract that and learn some ways to be more self-aware?
Sure. Also, great question. I think in life I've learned way more from my weaknesses and failures than my successes. And I know that sounds so cliche, but it really is true. Right. And growing up, I never thought that I would be able to carve out the slice of life that I've been able to achieve in my age. And I think books was helpful for that. I was self-aware enough to know that I didn't know certain things. I wanted to get that information. But I think leverage is also a really important thing that I learned from my failures. Another real estate example, when you're renovating a project, you can manage it, general contractor, GC it yourself, and hire all these different subs and all these different key players to help you. Or you can hire one person to do all of that. Of course, you pay a premium for that. But I learned early on in my career that it's better for me to outsource certain things and learn from the mistakes I made early on to get better at it now.
Yeah, so that's a great example, because with weaknesses, a lot of us just say we suck at that or we're terrible, and they just chalk it up and say we're done. Todd's using an example of being self-aware that's enabled him to kind of learn on his own and teach himself to kind of overcome those. So last thing, real quick, what are some advices that you can give towards self-awareness, towards a student either entering their internship or entering the real world?
Absolutely. I was given this advice when I was 16 by my then, I think, sophomore English teacher. The two things that will trip you up if you're trying to be self-aware are greed and ego. So if you can check your ego and not be so greedy and really take a look inside of you and see how other people perceive you, you will have a lot of initial success, but mainly comfort when you're entering your internship life.
Great. So that's a good way to wrap up self-awareness, and I hope that you guys can take something out of this in terms of your being self-awareness and then also perceiving like other people's self-awareness. It kind of helps to be a student and to see what other people are doing and being like, maybe that person's not totally self-aware, but what am I doing wrong as well? What are my strengths and what are their weaknesses? So in that sense, we're going to leave it to you guys, and that's how we're going to wrap it up. So thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
And we'll be back.